The first time he called me Mom, I felt my whole life soften. And the last time he said it, it sounded like a door shutting. I remember the exact moment because the kitchen smelled like onions frying in butter, and the radio was low, playing one of those old songs that always made me think of Sunday mornings. I had my back turned, one hand on the wooden spoon, the other steadying myself against the counter because I'd been on my feet too long. And when he spoke, my name came out like a habit he was trying to break. Mom, I need to tell you something. Not Mama, not Ma, not even my first name like he'd done when he was angry as a teenager. Just Mom, but it was thin, polite, like a word borrowed and returned. I turned around and saw the way he stood in the doorway, shoulders pulled tight, eyes darting like he was looking for an escape route in my own home. Behind him, the living room clock ticked loud enough to sound like it had opinions. And in that small pause before he continued, something old inside me, something that had survived raising a child who wasn't mine by blood, started to tremble. Because I knew that posture. I'd seen it years ago when he was 10 and had broken a neighbor's window with a baseball. I'd seen it when he was 15 and had hidden a suspension notice under his mattress. That same brace for impact stance. But this time, he wasn't a little boy. He was grown. He was married. He was a father. And I didn't understand how, after all those years of scraped knees and homework nights and fevered foreheads, we were back in that posture again, him standing there, ready to confess, and me wondering what part of my heart was about to get bruised. My lawyer says you might hear it from someone else, he said, voice careful. So I wanted to tell you first. A lawyer. That word turned the warm air in my kitchen cold. Lawyers don't come into your life when things are simple. They come when something is being taken, protected, divided, or buried. I set the spoon down slowly. I wiped my hands on the dish towel like the motion could keep me calm. What is it, baby? I asked, and I hated the way my voice cracked on that last word. He swallowed. His Adam's apple bobbed like a little betrayal of its own. I'm challenging the will. For a second, I couldn't make sense of it. The will. The only will I could think of was my own, my will to hold this family together when it felt like it had been stitched with mismatched thread. Then it clicked. My husband's will. My James. My late husband who'd been gone 9 months, but whose absence still lived in the corners of the house like a shadow that refused to leave. I stared at my stepson, my son, in every way that mattered to me, and felt my knees weaken. Why? I whispered. He didn't answer right away. He looked down at the floor like the wood might give him the words. And in that silence, I saw the years between us, stacked like plates we'd shared meals over. First birthdays I threw for him when his mother didn't show. First days of school with me brushing his hair back and tying his shoelaces. Teen years where he slammed doors, but still let me sit at the edge of his bed when he had nightmares he refused to admit were nightmares. I raised him like my own. And now he was telling me he was coming for what my husband left behind. He finally looked up. Because it's not fair. Not fair. That phrase didn't belong to him. It sounded like something someone else had put in his mouth and told him to chew. James took care of you, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He left you something. He left your kids something. We talked about this. He shook his head, quick and sharp. He left you the house. It's my home, I said softly. It's been my home for 20 years. It was his home first, he snapped, and the sharpness of it made my chest sting. I blinked at him like I didn't recognize the man in my kitchen. And that's when I noticed it. Not just what he said, but the way he said it, the confidence. The rehearsed bite. The way his hands stayed calm at his sides while his eyes stayed hard. Someone had been feeding him lines. I could almost see it. Someone across the table whispering, "You deserve more. Don't let her take everything. That house should be yours." I wanted to ask him who had been in his ear. I wanted to ask him if his wife, Danielle, had something to do with it, because Danielle had always looked at our home like she was measuring it. Counting rooms. Imagining renovations. But I didn't ask yet, because I still believed, stupidly, tenderly, that if I handled this right, he'd come back to himself. So I took a breath. I forced my shoulders down. I said the words a mother says when she's trying to keep her child from falling off a cliff. "Come sit," I told him. "Let's talk." He didn't sit. He stayed in that doorway like a stranger at the edge of my life. "I'm not here to fight," he said, and even that sounded like something he'd practiced. "I just wanted you to know it's happening." "Happening," I repeated, like it was weather. He nodded once, like he'd done his duty. Then he turned and walked out. And when the front door closed, the sound didn't just echo through the hallway. It echoed through every year I'd spent loving him. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty doorway, while the onions burned in the pan and the radio kept singing like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Because in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about money or property. It was about loyalty. About the quiet promise a child makes when you raise them with love, even if you didn't give birth to them. And as I turned off the stove with shaking hands, I felt something settle heavy in my stomach. A suspicion. A question I didn't want to ask myself, but couldn't ignore anymore. What else had my son been hiding from me? Because people don't wake up one day and decide to tear a family apart. Something leads them there. And I had a feeling this was only the beginning. The next morning, I woke up before the sun, the way I used to when James was alive and the house still had 2 sets of footsteps in it. The bed felt too wide, even after 9 months. The sheets were cool on the side where he used to sleep, and for a second, just a second, I reached over like muscle memory could bring him back. My hand met emptiness, and the quiet of the room pressed against my chest. Downstairs, the house smelled faintly of last night's burnt onions, and I hated that the first scent of my day was something ruined. I brewed coffee anyway. The old machine sputtered and hissed like it was complaining, and I stood by the window, watching the neighborhood lights blink on one by one. A dog barked somewhere. A car door slammed. Life continuing, careless and steady. Meanwhile, my family was cracking. I held the warm mug in both hands and tried to think logically. My stepson, Eli, had never been greedy. He wasn't perfect, but he wasn't cruel. Even when he and James argued in his 20s, it was always about pride, about independence, not about taking. So why now? I went to James's study and opened the bottom drawer of the desk where we kept the paperwork. The scent of his old cologne still lingered there, faint, dusty, like a memory that refused to fade completely. I pulled out the folder marked estate, the one I'd avoided touching too often because it made James feel too final. The will was exactly what I remembered. James had been fair, careful. He left Eli a cash portion and a small investment account. He set up education funds for the grandkids. And yes, he left me the house. Not because he wanted to cheat his son. Because he wanted to make sure I wouldn't end up uprooted at 62 years old. James had said it plainly the night we signed everything. "Linda," he'd told me, his hand warm over mine at the kitchen table, "this house is your stability. Eli has time. He has youth. He'll be okay. But you deserve peace." I'd argued then, not because I didn't want it, but because I didn't want Eli to ever feel less than. James had sighed and said, "Then we raise him right. We make sure he knows love isn't measured in square footage." And I believed we had. I closed the folder and sat at James's desk, staring at the framed photo there, Eli at 12, missing 2 front teeth, his arm around my shoulder, grinning like the world couldn't touch him. James stood behind us, one hand on each of our backs like he was proud of the family he built. My throat tightened. "What happened to you?" I whispered to the photo, like the boy could answer. The first clue came later that day, when I called Eli to talk again. He didn't pick up. I tried again around lunchtime. No answer. By the 3rd call, I stopped, because I didn't want to become the kind of woman begging her own child for attention. Instead, I called Danielle, his wife. Danielle answered on the 2nd ring, her voice bright in that way that always felt a little too polished. "Hi, Linda. Everything okay?" "I need to talk to Eli," I said. "He told me something last night. About challenging James's will." There was a pause, tiny but noticeable, like she'd been waiting for that topic to come up. "Oh," she said softly. "Yeah, he mentioned it. He mentioned it. Like it was a grocery list item." "Danielle," I said, keeping my tone even, "this is serious. I want to understand why he's doing this." Another pause. Then she sighed, and her voice turned almost sympathetic. "Well, Linda, you know Eli's been under a lot of stress. He just wants what's fair. That word again. Fair. And the way she said it made my skin prickle. I thought James was fair, I replied. Danielle's voice cooled slightly. James was generous. But Eli's his son. And, you know, the house is the biggest asset. There it was. Not grief. Not love. Not family. Asset. I looked around my kitchen, the worn table where Eli had done homework, the corner where we'd marked his height on the wall, the cabinet handle that was still loose because James always said he'd fix it this weekend. This wasn't an asset. This was a life. I need to speak to Eli directly, I said. He's busy, Danielle replied quickly. He's meeting with someone today. With who? I asked. Financial advisor, she said, too fast. And his lawyer. You know. My grip tightened on the phone. I'll call him later, I said, and hung up. The moment the line went dead, I felt it. That first small crack of suspicion widening. Because Danielle wasn't just aware. She was involved. That evening, I drove to Eli's house. I didn't announce myself. I didn't call first. I just went, hands steady on the steering wheel, heart pounding like I was doing something wrong. The sky was gray, heavy with winter light, and the bare trees looked like they were reaching into the clouds for answers. When I pulled into their driveway, I saw Eli's truck. So he was home. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I rang again, longer. Still nothing. But through the front window, I could see movement. A shadow passing. Someone was inside, choosing not to open the door. I stepped back, stared at the house, and felt a sharp sting behind my eyes. It wasn't just anger. It was humiliation. This was the boy I carried through a stomach virus at 3 a.m. And now he couldn't even open his door to me. I walked around the side, past the hedges, toward the backyard gate. The gate latch squeaked softly when I pushed it. The yard smelled damp, the grass winter dead and muddy at the edges. And then I heard voices low, tense, coming from the back patio. I stopped behind the fence line, not meaning to eavesdrop, but something in my gut told me to stay still. Eli's voice came first. She's going to fight it, he said. Danielle replied, her tone sharp. Then we push harder. Your dad would have wanted you to have that house. Eli sounded uncertain. He said it was hers. Danielle cut him off. He said that because she had him wrapped around her finger. Come on, Eli. You were his blood. You're letting her take everything. My stomach dropped. Wrapped around her finger. Take everything. It wasn't just about fairness. It was about rewriting my place in James's life, like I'd been some outsider who tricked her way into the family. I pressed a hand to my mouth, breathing shallow. Eli spoke again, quieter. I don't want her to hate me. Danielle's voice softened, but it wasn't kind. It was calculated. She'll be fine. People move on. And if she doesn't, that's her choice. But think about our kids. Think about what they deserve. Our kids. There it was the hook that pulled him. Not greed for himself. Fear for his children. And Danielle knew exactly how to use it. I backed away slowly, careful not to make the gate squeak again. My hands were trembling so badly I had to grip the fence post to steady myself. I walked to my car like I was walking through water. By the time I got in, my cheeks were wet. Not because I'd heard betrayal, but because I'd heard my son, letting someone else define who I was. That night, I sat in James's recliner, the one that still held the shape of his body. The house was dark except for the lamp beside me. The light cast soft shadows on the walls, and the ticking clock in the living room sounded louder than usual, like it was counting down to something. I stared at the ceiling and realized something painful. If Eli went through with this, it wouldn't just take my home. It would take the last piece of my marriage, because the house was the proof that I belonged here. That James chose me, that our life mattered, and I could already feel Danielle trying to erase that. So I did what I hadn't done in months. I opened my laptop and searched for the name of Eli's lawyer. And when I saw it, when I recognized the law firm, it hit me like a slap. Because that firm was the same one Danielle's father used. Meaning this wasn't something Eli found on his own. This had been planned. Carefully. Quietly. And I suddenly understood what I was really facing. Not just a grieving son, but a coordinated betrayal, one that had been building long before Eli ever stood in my kitchen and said the word lawyer. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed listening to the house breathe pipes clicking as they cooled, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of a truck passing somewhere beyond the neighborhood. Every noise felt louder, sharper, like my senses had decided sleep was a luxury I no longer deserved. James used to say this house had a voice. Listen, he'd tell me when the wind rattled the windows. That's it settling. Means it knows we're here. That night, the house didn't feel settled at all. It felt like it was holding its breath. Around 3 a.m, I got up and padded down the hallway barefoot. The floor was cold. I stopped at the framed photos lining the wall, Eli at different ages, moments frozen like evidence in a case no one asked to open. His high school graduation, my arm around his shoulders. His wedding day, Danielle beside him in white, smiling wide, her hand resting possessively on his chest. I lingered on that one. I remembered the way she'd hugged me at the reception, her arms tight, her voice low in my ear. Thank you, she'd said, for everything you've done for him. At the time, I'd felt seen. Now, standing there in the quiet, I wondered if that hug had been gratitude or inventory. By morning, I knew one thing for certain. If I stayed silent, they'd write my story for me. So I called my lawyer. Her name was Patricia, sharp voice, calm presence. She'd helped James with the will, and when she answered the phone, she already sounded like she knew why I was calling. Linda, she said gently, I was wondering when I'd hear from you. That alone told me this was further along than I'd realized. They've filed. I asked. Not yet, she replied. But I received an inquiry from the opposing firm yesterday. They're preparing. Opposing. A word that turned my family into sides. I closed my eyes. What are my chances? Patricia didn't sugarcoat. James had taught me to respect that kind of honesty. The will is solid, she said. But challenges aren't always about winning outright. Sometimes they're about pressure. About making you tired enough to settle. Tired. I was already tired. But tired didn't mean weak. I don't want to fight my son, I said quietly. I know, she replied. But you can't let someone fight you unchecked either. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at my hands. They looked older than I felt, veins more visible, skin thinner. These were the hands that packed Eli's lunches, signed permission slips, held his face when he cried after his first heartbreak. And now those same hands were being positioned as obstacles. The first real confrontation happened 2 days later. Eli came by the house unannounced. I heard his truck before I saw it, the familiar rumble pulling into the driveway. My heart jumped the way it always did when he was younger, when I knew I was about to see him but didn't know which version, happy, frustrated, distant. I opened the door before he knocked. He looked tired. Dark circles under his eyes. His jaw tense. Mom, he said. The words still hit me, even now. Come in, I replied. He stepped inside slowly, like the house might reject him. His eyes flicked around the living room, landing on James's chair, the bookshelf, the family photos. For a brief second, something like regret crossed his face. Then it hardened. We need to talk, he said. I gestured to the couch. We sat opposite each other, space between us like a line neither of us knew how to cross. I heard you went to a lawyer, he began. I had to, I said. You didn't leave me much choice. He rubbed his hands together, a nervous habit he'd had since childhood. Danielle thinks you're taking this personally. I almost laughed. This is personal, I said softly. It's my home, my marriage, my place in this family. He sighed, frustration leaking through. You're acting like I'm trying to hurt you, aren't you? I asked. He looked up sharply. No, I'm trying to protect my kids. And what about protecting me? I asked. Who's doing that? Silence stretched between us. I gave up things for you, I continued, voice steady but low. I put my career on pause when your mother left. I showed up when she didn't. I loved you when I didn't have to and when it wasn't easy. He flinched. That doesn't mean I owe you my inheritance, he said, and the moment the words left his mouth, I saw him regret them. But regret doesn't rewind time. Inheritance, I repeated. You're calling it that now. He stood abruptly. This isn't going anywhere. No, I agreed. Because you're not being honest with me or with yourself. He paced the room, agitation growing. You always do this. You make it emotional. It is emotional, I replied. You don't get to strip the feeling out of something just because it's inconvenient. He stopped pacing and looked at me, really looked at me, and for a moment I saw the boy again. Then Danielle's voice echoed in my memory, wrapped around her finger. Eli straightened. We'll let the courts decide. There it was. The line drawn. Before you go, I said quietly. He hesitated. You should know something, I continued. I heard you. The other day. At your house. His face drained of color. You? What? I heard the conversation, I said. About me. About James. About the house. His mouth opened, then closed. And I know this didn't start with you, I added. I know whose lawyer you're using. And I know why. He looked like he'd been slapped. You were listening? He snapped. I was standing in your yard, I replied calmly, trying to figure out why my son wouldn't open the door to me. He looked away. I didn't want to hurt you, he muttered. But you let someone else do it for you, I said. He didn't answer. When he finally left, the house felt heavier than before, like it was absorbing the weight of what had just been said. That evening, I received a message from Danielle. This doesn't have to be ugly. We can settle quietly if you're reasonable. Reasonable. I stared at the screen, then turned the phone face down. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not into anger, into clarity. Because I finally understood this wasn't just about what I stood to lose. It was about what I was willing to let be rewritten. If I walked away quietly, I wouldn't just be losing a house. I'd be accepting the lie that I never truly belonged. And I couldn't do that. Not for myself. And not for the boy I raised, who deserved to know the truth, even if it hurt. So I opened my laptop again. This time, not to defend, but to prepare. Because if this was going to become public, I wasn't going to let my story be told without my voice. The first letter from their lawyer arrived on a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays used to be grocery days. James and I had a rhythm: coffee in the morning, errands before noon, soup simmering by late afternoon. When the envelope slid through the mail slot and landed on the hardwood with a soft slap, it felt like an interruption to a life that no longer existed. I stood there for a long moment, staring at it. Cream-colored paper. Clean edges. The law firm's name printed neatly in the corner. So formal for something so personal. I didn't open it right away. I carried it to the kitchen and set it on the table, right where Eli used to do his math homework. I made myself tea first, chamomile, because my hands were already unsteady. The kettle screamed louder than usual, and I flinched, annoyed at myself for being jumpy in my own home. When I finally slit the envelope open, the words blurred together at first. Legal language has a way of doing that, turning real pain into sterile sentences. Our client intends to pursue his rightful claim. Disproportionate distribution of assets. Willing to resolve amicably if terms are adjusted. Adjusted. As if love could be adjusted. As if 20 years of marriage could be recalculated like a spreadsheet error. By the time I finished reading, my tea had gone cold. That night, I did something I hadn't planned on doing. I called Eli's mother. Her name was Carol, and she hadn't been part of Eli's daily life since he was 8. She'd moved 3 states away after the divorce, chasing a new relationship that didn't last. We'd exchanged polite words at graduations and weddings, but nothing more. Still, she was his mother. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding surprised to hear my voice. Linda? Yes, I said. I know this is unexpected. That's one way to put it, she replied cautiously. I wouldn't call if it wasn't important, I said. It's about Eli. There was a pause. Then a sigh. What's he done now? That question alone told me more than she probably intended. I explained slowly, carefully about the will, the challenge, the house. I didn't paint myself as a victim. I stuck to facts. When I mentioned Danielle's influence, Carol let out a sharp breath. I knew it, she muttered. You did? I asked. Danielle's been pushing him for years, Carol said. Always talking about what he deserves. I warned him. I closed my eyes. Why didn't you say anything to me? Because you were the stable one, she replied quietly. And I didn't want to stir trouble in a home you built. Home. The word landed softly. Can you talk to him? I asked. Not to take sides. Just to remind him who he's hurting. Carol hesitated. I can try. But Linda, he's stubborn. And when he feels cornered, he doubles down. I thanked her anyway. When the call ended, I sat in silence, staring at the dark window where my reflection looked older than I felt. The next few weeks unfolded like a slow unraveling. Patricia filed a response. Dates were set. Letters went back and forth. Each envelope felt heavier than the last. Friends started asking gentle questions. Had I heard from Eli lately? Was everything okay? Word travels faster than truth ever does. At church one Sunday, a woman I barely knew touched my arm and said, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Her voice held pity, and I hated that more than judgment. That was the first time I realized this wasn't staying private. The public consequence was coming, whether I wanted it or not. The real breaking point came at a family gathering. James's sister, Margaret, hosted a birthday dinner for one of the grandchildren. I debated not going, but something inside me refused to hide. I baked the cake myself, chocolate, Eli's favorite since he was little. When I walked in, the room went quiet for half a second. Conversation stalled. People smiled too quickly. Eli was there. So was Danielle. She avoided my eyes. We exchanged polite greetings, stiff and careful. I handed the cake to Margaret, who squeezed my hand in silent support. Dinner passed in fragments. Forced laughter. Clinking forks. Children oblivious to the tension humming beneath the table. Then Danielle spoke, loud enough for everyone to hear. It's just such a shame, she said, shaking her head, when money tears families apart. Every muscle in my body tightened. I looked at Eli. He stared at his plate. I could have stayed silent. I could have swallowed it. But something in me, something steady and tired of being edited out, stood up. It is a shame, I said calmly. Especially when people confuse money with love. The table went still. Danielle smiled thinly. No one's confused, Linda. We're just being realistic. Realistic about what? I asked. About rewriting history? Eli finally looked up. Can we not do this here? Then maybe you shouldn't have brought it here, I replied. Margaret cleared her throat. Enough. This is a child's birthday. But the damage was done. Eyes were on us. Ears were open. Danielle stood. I think it's important people understand that Eli's father wanted his legacy protected. My voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. James protected his legacy by loving his family, I said. Including me. Someone gasped softly. Eli stood abruptly. We're leaving. As they walked out, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Because the truth was finally in the room. After that night, things shifted. James's brother called me. Then a cousin. Then an old family friend who'd known James before he'd known me. They didn't all agree with me, but they listened. And listening changes things. The hearing was set for early spring. The day before, Eli called. His voice sounded smaller. I talked to my mom, he said. I said nothing. She told me some things, he continued. About how much he did. About how she wasn't there. I closed my eyes. I didn't know, he whispered. You knew enough, I replied gently. I don't want to do this anymore, he said. But Danielle. I understood that pause. I can't fight your battles for you, I told him. But I won't disappear to make this easier. He didn't answer. The next day, in that quiet courtroom with its wooden benches and neutral walls, Eli did something I didn't expect. He withdrew the challenge. Just like that. Danielle stared at him, stunned. Her face tightened, lips pressed thin. She stood to object, but the judge silenced her. It was over. Not cleanly, not painlessly, but over. When I walked out of that courthouse, the air felt different. Lighter, like I could finally breathe. Eli didn't follow me. Not yet. But for the first time in months, I felt something settle inside my chest. Not victory. Not revenge. Justice. The days after the hearing were strangely quiet. No phone calls. No emails. No envelope sliding through the mail slot with legal language trying to sound civilized. The house settled back into its old rhythms, but something had changed. It wasn't peace, not yet. It was more like the aftermath of a storm, when the air feels scrubbed raw and you're not sure what's been washed away for good. I slept better than I had in weeks, though I still woke before sunrise. Grief and habit have a way of keeping the same hours. One morning, while I was watering the plants by the front window, I noticed Eli's truck slow down as it passed the house. It didn't stop. It just slowed, like he was deciding something and couldn't quite bring himself to act on it. I didn't wave. I didn't hide either. I just kept watering, letting him see me where I had always been. 2 weeks later, he finally knocked. The sound startled me not because it was loud, but because it had been so long since anyone knocked on that door with uncertainty. When I opened it, he stood there empty-handed, shoulders slumped, eyes tired in a way that felt familiar. "Hi, Mom," he said. The word landed differently this time. Not borrowed. Not thin. I stepped aside. "Come in." He moved through the house slowly, like he was reacquainting himself with it. His gaze lingered on the family photos, the bookshelf, James's chair. "I didn't realize how much of him was everywhere," he said quietly. "He's always been," I replied. We sat at the kitchen table again, the same one where this had all begun. The light coming through the window was softer now, spring just starting to make its way back into the world. "I owe you an apology," he said, staring at his hands. I didn't rush him. "I let someone convince me that love was something you prove by taking," he continued. "And I forgot how much you gave." I nodded. "People don't forget overnight. They forget slowly." His eyes filled. He didn't wipe them away. "I was scared," he admitted. "About money. About the kids. About not being enough." I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. It was the same hand I'd held when he was small. Bigger now. Rougher. But still his. "Fear makes us do things we wouldn't recognize ourselves doing," I said. "What matters is what we choose once we see it." He squeezed my hand once, then let go. Danielle didn't come up. Not that day. Not in the conversations that followed. She moved out a month later. Quietly. No dramatic announcement. Just gone. Eli told me over coffee one morning. "I think she needed the fight more than the family," he said. That wasn't bitterness speaking. It was understanding. Healing didn't arrive all at once. Some days, things felt almost normal. We laughed. We shared meals. He brought the kids over again. They ran through the house like they always had, unaware of how close it had come to slipping out from under them. Other days, the weight returned, grief layered on top of disappointment, on top of the knowledge that love doesn't protect you from being hurt by the people you raise. But I learned something important during those months. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing not to carry the sharpest version of the pain with you forever. Eli never asked me to forgive him outright. And I never announced it. We just kept showing up. On the anniversary of James's passing, we went to the cemetery together. The kids placed flowers. Eli stood beside me in silence. "I should have defended you," he said finally. "You defended yourself in the end," I replied. "That counts." We stood there a while longer, the wind moving gently through the trees, the world continuing like it always does. That evening, back at the house, I sat alone in James's chair and thought about everything that had almost been lost. A home, a marriage, a bond built not on blood, but on choice. I realized then that raising a child, any child, is an act of faith. You give without guarantees. You love without contracts. And sometimes, even when your heart breaks, you don't regret the giving. Because love isn't proven by what people leave you. It's proven by what they come back for. And Eli had come back. Not because he had to, but because somewhere beneath fear and influence and mistakes, he still knew who he was. As I turned off the lamp that night, the house felt settled again. Not perfect, but honest. Sometimes, the deepest heartbreak doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people you loved without conditions. When I look back now, I don't think about the court papers or the fear of losing my home. I think about that little boy who once fell asleep on my shoulder during late-night movies. I think about how love made me brave enough to raise a child who didn't come from my body, but came from my heart. Betrayal has a way of making you question your worth. It whispers lies like maybe I didn't do enough, or maybe I never truly belonged. But time, patience, and truth have a way of answering those lies quietly. I learned that standing up for yourself doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you stop disappearing. I didn't fight to punish my son. I fought so my life, my marriage, my years, my sacrifices wouldn't be erased. And in the end, what healed us wasn't winning or losing. It was honesty. It was accountability. It was the courage to face the damage and still choose to repair what could be saved. Not every story ends with reconciliation. And not every apology fixes everything. But sometimes, when people are willing to look at themselves honestly, love finds a way back. Different, quieter, more careful, but real. So I'll leave you with this question, from one heart to another. If someone you raised betrayed you, would you walk away in silence, or would you stand your ground and tell your truth? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if this story spoke to you, please like, subscribe, and support the channel, because stories like these remind us that even after heartbreak, dignity and love can still survive.